We are seeing cracks in the media wall, the big media wall that separates a lot of us in society. And I've talked about that on previous episodes. But today I'm talking about the cracks in the wall. Now, if there are cracks in the big media wall, that means there's also cracks in big government, big tech, big corporations. It's going to hit some people pretty hard. I get that. But I think it's also a good reality check. I think it's a great thing. And more importantly, it means more freedom of information and freedom from socialism and communism in our society. Now, I'm talking about much more than Elon Musk and the Twitter files. So, of course, that's a big part of some of the news that's going on, but it goes well beyond that. The good news is that you are making a difference. People all across the nation are making a difference on both sides of the political fence. And that's pretty good news. Let's see where this lands. You are watching the Today with Kay show, and I'm Kay Rubacek.
There's a saying, don't wait to buy gold and wait. That saying is more true now than ever. Just a month ago, gold was at a multi-year low, but now it is up more than 10%, and gold isn't the only precious metal you can use to secure your assets. Just a few months ago, silver was also at a multi-year low, but it is now up more than 30%. So don't wait to buy gold and wait. Talk to someone you can trust. Go to ourgoldguy.com to schedule your free consultation with Our Gold Guy, Ira. That's ourgoldguy.com.
There are massive media layoffs happening right now. They have been happening for some time this year. And of course, I feel terribly bad for the media workers who are out of jobs. But this points to something much bigger. Look at Meta, for example. Meta's Facebook is continuing to cut costs. They're cutting headcounts. They have lost a lot of money, 9.4 billion in the first 9 months of this year. That's how much Meta has lost. TikTok has been a big part of that. I'm going to get into TikTok in a little bit. Now, Meta saw that its daily active users declined for the first time in 18 years. Think about how long Facebook has been around. It's been around for a long time now. TikTok was the first kind of app to really shift Facebook. I mean, we're calling it Meta now, but Facebook's sort of stronghold over that segment of social media. So now Meta is, Meta, Facebook, its stronghold is showing cracks. They have laid off over 11,000 employees since November. That's reducing its workforce by 13%. I mean, that's huge, 11,000 employees. We saw what happened with Twitter. Thousands of employees were let go of there as well by Elon Musk as soon as he took over. That was not too long ago. Look at the rest of the media landscape. It's been predicted for a few months now that a bad winter was coming for US media companies, but it looks like it's come early. Axios is reporting here that nearly 3,000 media jobs have been cut this year. So that's not including Twitter. That's not including Meta. That's where, we've just seen 11,000 for Meta. But they're saying that 1/3 of those are coming from the news media industry. These are a lot of big media companies. They're all part of larger media conglomerates. These are sort of sub-brands, BDG, Recount, Gannett, a lot of advertising brands, CNN, Netflix. I'll get into those in a minute. So they were kind of expected. Some of them were expected. You can see on this chart, some were expected. Others were a bit of a surprise. Netflix. Okay, we're not talking thousands at Netflix, but Netflix is losing staff. They are laying off staff. Anytime big companies like this are laying off staff, you've got to be looking behind the surface of that, especially when there's a big trend of all of these companies. These big, supposedly leaders in the industry are laying off staff. There's a lot of different reasons for it, but let's look at the trends first. Warner Brothers and Discovery, another one. GTV, this is another one. This is hitting more of the gaming industry, another form of media. So some media are reporting that there's 1,000 here or there's 30 or 40 there. But when you start to add them all up together with just Meta on its own, 11,000, we're talking a lot of stuff that are being cut. CNN has seen a lot of prominent figures go. So it's not just numbers, it's influences that are shifting. They're either being moved to different places or they are being let go. It's cost cutting. And if they're cutting costs, it means they don't have the audience. Radio segment of the media industry, Beasley Media Group. So they're letting people go in Detroit, Las Vegas, Philadelphia, Boston, New Jersey, Tampa. This is big. Wall Street Journal had a little bit of a summary here. I like this one.
The layoff announcements just keep coming. Disney, Amazon, Twitter, Meta, Microsoft, Salesforce, Citigroup, Barclays, and lots of others. But many of the recent layoffs grabbing headlines are coming from companies with large revenues and lots of cash on their balance sheets. A much larger wave of job cuts may be on the horizon. Debt and a looming cash crunch could be responsible.
They're not saying recession. According to a lot of experts, we're actually in the recession now. We are seeing mass layoffs. This is not a small number of layoffs. This is mass layoffs. Oh, we are in the recession. Usually you see big charts when there's these kind of things going on, and these media companies, they're the first to put infographics out to show, hey, look at this trend. But no one's putting out infographic charts about this because, well, it doesn't look good for the legacy media. CNN's even moving out of their Hollywood offices. They are cutting costs big time. It comes a week after CNN laid off hundreds of staffers and announced live programming on their sister network HLN, once known as CNN Headline News, would end on December 6th. And that has. So it's a big cable company network. It's not as big as CNN, but HLN is still pretty big. They're failing and they're being cut. Legacy media companies are failing. I see that as a crack in the wall. We have more media diversity happening, which means that we're able to get more freedom of information out. So many of these media have been intentionally preventing access for the public to important stories. BuzzFeed, look at this. They're cutting 12% of their workforce. So Meta was cutting 13%. Now BuzzFeed is cutting 12%. That's only about 180 people compared to Meta's 11,000. But still, 12%, it's a lot. And it's not just, rank and file staff that are being asked to leave or being exited out. It's these are big guys as well. Warner Brothers veteran Jeff Brown is exiting. It may not be a cost-cutting reason, but it's another staff member lost. And he played a huge role for 23 years at the studios there. NPR as well has announced a near total hiring freeze as part of cost-cutting measures. And the Washington Post is killing its award-winning Sunday magazine. This is reported by Vanity Fair. So it's really being covered by a lot of media now. But we have to ask, why is it happening? A few weeks ago, I talked about a poll of media distrust. And this is another poll that's been put out by I&I, by Issues and Insights. This one has a different type of data set to what I showed in a previous episode. The numbers are very similar. They're getting worse, but they've got a different analysis on this, which I think is interesting. And it's a majority of Democrats, 54%, say they trust big media outlets versus 42% who say they don't. That compares with a relatively tiny 15% of Republicans who trust the media compared to 81% who say they don't. It's really interesting to look at where this media wall lies, because it is affected by politics. It's not something that we can just say they're not reporting on the news. They're being guided. They're being politically motivated. If news wasn't politically motivated, then we'd be able to make choices for ourselves. But so much of the news is politically motivated. This talks about trust in alternative media too, this data, which is interesting. So they're calling alternative media, for example here, New York Post, Washington Times, Newsmax, The Daily Caller, Real Clear Politics, etc., as alternative media, but really they're more right-leaning conservative media. I don't know why they're calling them alternative. It seems silly that we call traditional media left-leaning media and alternative media right-leaning media. To me, those names are just totally misleading. Now, this poll came out after the midterm elections, and it just shows the midterms were an absolute disaster for the media. So the traditional left-leaning media trust index fell from 39.2% in October to 38.1%. It is the lowest ever reading since the index was created in March of 2021. That's not that long ago. It's not like it's the lowest ever in 20, 30 years. So different polls will say this is the lowest ever actually in decades. This one, they're saying it's the lowest in a year, but it's been pretty low for a while. But this is a month by month breakdown. So I like that. And you can just see the Democrat viewers have had the biggest drop in media trust since the midterm elections. It's not just the midterm elections. You've all heard about what Elon Musk has been doing. Since he's taken over Twitter, there's been thousands of layoffs at the company, and it's become bitter, highly politicized debate over how much censorship, or if any, Twitter should exercise over content. Here, I like how the American Thinker site said, Elon Musk has dropped a bombshell that has no known parallel in American history. The Biden administration and the Democratic National Committee colluded with Twitter to swing the 2020 election to Joe Biden and his Democrats. The fact that that is really out in the public now is just, I think it's shocking for a lot of people who've been following they're not traditional media, it's left-leaning media. And now I think they're just going to start looking for more alternative, and we shouldn't be calling it alternative, really. It's just more, I guess, more free-thinking media. People who've talked about media and government colluding in the past have been called conspiracy theorists. In my book, I've talked about that quite a bit, but it's really, there's no conspiracy other than it is a criminal conspiracy to do that, which is real. It's not a conspiracy theory. And even if you just look at Google, I like this. Google has their Google Transparency Report, and they keep track of the government requests to remove content. So Google themselves make clear publicly that they remove content according to government requests. So the fact that Twitter was removing content according to government requests, it's not the first time. There's precedent already. So with Elon Musk dropping these details of the Twitter suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop story, I mean, that just completely turns around the 2020 election. I've talked about that in previous episodes. If you haven't read the Twitter files, you need to. And it doesn't take long. You just go to Twitter and you search for the Twitter files. Matt Taibbi is the journalist that Elon Musk gave the content to, and he did a great summary where you can just scroll through step by step. I'm sure you've already taken a look. It's pretty important stuff. And it just shows step by step who was colluding with who, and they're choosing party lines. They're being completely partisan, which is a disservice to you and me. TikTok is another big issue, and it's another big crack in the media war. TikTok has now been prohibited in Maryland due to it being a national security threat. This is for government staff. It's not across the whole of Maryland, but it's a really good start. Maryland isn't the first state to do that. Maryland came a week after South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem. South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster also did this. Nebraska Governor Pete Ricketts actually blocked TikTok on all state electronic devices as early as August 2020. He was right on the ball. These guys are following what the FCC, the Federal Communications Commissioner Brendan Carr, called for the beginning of November this year. So he called for banning TikTok in the US. We know that President Trump called for banning TikTok a long time ago, but it's back again. And I'm glad. Whoever does it, it just needs to be done. So the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, has no authority to directly regulate TikTok. So they're asking the Council on Foreign Investment in the US to do that. Let's see what happens, because TikTok is just so popular, but that just shows how effective it has been in infiltrating this nation. More than 200 million downloads in just the US. And it's owned by a Chinese company. Chinese being Chinese Communist Party company. You cannot run a business in China successfully without having ties to the Chinese Communist Party. It's an illusion if you think that you can run a business there without having to follow party lines. At some point in time, you will have to. Maybe at the beginning, you can just operate your business and not feel so pressured by regulations from the Chinese Communist Party, but eventually you will, and you do, because all businesses are required to follow state law. And I don't mean provincial law there, I mean like nation state law under the single monopoly of the Chinese Communist Party. And many people might think, well, so what? I'm clicking likes on a dancing videos or something like that, or I'm making money through getting thousands of followers on TikTok. But that's exactly the wolf in sheep's clothing. CCP is really good at this type of deception and to kind of get you distracted and suck you in. It's socialist strategy, communist strategy, Marxist strategies. They're really good at this stuff. And we really shouldn't just fall for it, because it's just dumb. So on Twitter, Elon Musk is saying TikTok is potentially destroying civilization, or he's posing that question. That's putting it into people's minds. But I like this explanation by a cryptocurrency advocate, Crypto T, and she's got a thread here. Okay, so she was making TikTok videos every day for 2 years, and then she was one day banned permanently for violence, and that led her down a TikTok rabbit hole, as she puts it. So a few facts here. I think this is helpful. Good summary. TikTok is owned by a company called ByteDance. You may have heard of that, headquartered in Beijing, the capital city of China, run by the Chinese Communist Party. So under China's law, CCP law, ByteDance has to censor information that is unapproved by the Chinese government. Remember, it's not a government. It is a regime. It is not a legitimate government. It's not elected by the people. It is a parasite on the Chinese people. That is the CCP. If you want to know more about that, read my book, Who Are China's Walking Dead, where I interviewed former Chinese Communist Party officials about how the regime works and really how they can be so cruel, and how they themselves became the walking dead, which is what they call themselves. That's what happens under communism. That's what happens under this socialist ideology. It all goes back to the roots of Marxism, and Karl Marx called communism a specter. So that's, what is that? That's like a ghost, a demon. And that's the root of what's going on in China. It's really just taken over the whole nation. They don't vote in a government. It's absolutely a monopoly. It's a regime. So, and that's why you're seeing protests. And I'm going to get into the protests in China on another episode coming up soon. I've got a great interview for that. So stay tuned, keep an eye out for that one. But let's get back to this TikTok. Crypto T was doing TikTok videos about Bitcoin education, and she started going viral for that. And that's when her account got deleted for extreme violence. So she started investigating that. Isn't that great? People thinking, people asking questions. Okay, so Bitcoin is banned in China. So she's asking, is this why she was censored? The CCP will use anything to control. So while it looks like, oh, we can have happy dance videos on the side, they're going to use you to put their policies into place. So, okay, if they want to ban Bitcoin, what are they going to do to people promoting Bitcoin? This is where Crypto T found out the next stage down the rabbit hole of TikTok, and where she says TikTok itself is banned in China. Think about that. We have 200 million downloads of TikTok in the USA, pushed on us by a Chinese run, Communist Party run company that bans it in their own country. They're trying to take advantage of us being nice. You know, in general, Americans are pretty nice people, really actually very nice people. You know, the CCP's been trying to give a bad name for Americans for decades because that's how they can wear us down and take over the nation without firing a shot. They're using that as a weapon. And it's a media tool. It's a social media. So this is, you know, this has a massive influence on us. They know that as sort of Westerners, non-Chinese, we think differently. So they're using our culture against us. Crypto T says, okay, on TikTok, if you say men are trash and young girls should do OnlyFans, as in like, you know, pornography videos, then you get verified. So that's the kind of culture that they're promoting on TikTok. Anti-masculinity and pro-pornography and sexualization of women, dehumanization of women. If you say women are stupid and can't drive, you get promoted. There you go. They're trying to push down the culture instead of, you know, pushing positive things. That's all negative. If you say men and women are not enemies, you get banned. This is the culture of communism, where they want division. They want us to fight. So saying that men are trash, saying that women are stupid, that is part of the culture of struggle. This is a term that the communists use. It's the struggle. But if you say there is no struggle and that we can all get along and we're not enemies, then you're going to get banned. This is controlling our culture. But for the youth that are using it, they probably don't know any better if they're on TikTok for hours every day. So that's getting into their heads. This is promoting a really negative anti-American culture. It's promoting, that's total sexism, genderism, racism, all of that right there. So China has their own version of TikTok. So yeah, when people say China does have TikTok, yeah, but it's not really TikTok. They call it Douyin. Douyin is not TikTok. It has the same logo with Chinese, but it's actually a different setup. Their algorithm prioritizes educational content, and kids can only spend 40 minutes a day on it. So China gets the educational version, watered down version of TikTok, while the rest of the world gets chaos. They're really clever in that they understand the cultural differences, and they know they have a different type of control over their citizens, and they need a different type of control here. So China really doesn't have TikTok. It's fake. They have a different TikTok. Yeah, I like this advice here. You don't need the government to ban something for you to realize it's bad. So you can delete TikTok off your phone yourself. Yeah, but you have to have access to this information. The good thing is that so many people are now waking up to it. So we've got a bunch of states that have actually banned TikTok at a governmental level. We've had the FCC saying it's got to be banned. It's now coming out. So this is another crack in the media war. I mean, this has been on the radar for a while, but finally, we're seeing more states actually doing something about it, because it's not coming from the federal government. I mean, it should be coming across the board, but states are actually doing something about it, and that's great. You know, we've got to remember that we as individuals and as communities and organizations and the groups that we have in society, we do have a lot of power. And certainly at a state level, there's a lot of power too. We don't have to wait for the federal government to say, okay, TikTok's bad, let's ban it. We really can take a lot of things into our own hands and stop just thinking, oh, only big government can help me, because that's really what socialists want us to be thinking, that we're completely dependent on big government. Now, here's another crack in the media and government collusion. The JCPA, I don't know if you've heard about that. This act was being pushed really heavily to be passed in a bill this week, in the National Defense Authorization Act, NDAA. So the JCPA was being pushed through the NDAA. There's a whole lot of acronyms there and it makes it really confusing. But basically, this act actually was being called a Media Cartel Act. That gives you a bit of a summary of what's in it. This Journalism Competition and Preservation Act, what a terrible name, creates a must-carry and must-pay scheme, forcing US tech companies both to carry and pay for the content of news organizations through mandatory arbitration agreements. So basically, government and media working together and putting rules onto tech companies to work with them. Does that sound like a cartel? Yeah, it does. The news organizations are not limited to US ones, meaning that this JCPA would require US companies to carry and subsidize a range of publications that spread propaganda from foreign sources. So this would open up the US to increased foreign influence over American political and social movements and increased exposure to CCP-supported narratives. It's like a media bailout in a way, because they would get funded by the government and tech would have to pay as well. And that would, the money's just going to be passed around. The bailout comes from our pockets. Remember, if the government is paying for it, you're paying for it, I'm paying for it. It's our taxpayer dollars. So this is what they're playing around with, trying to bail out the media. So there's all these layoffs in the media happening across tech, across gaming, across Netflix, entertainment, and across news media. News media is being hit so hard, but so is tech. So they're losing so many staff. They're having to cut staff. So they're struggling. So the government is trying to bail them out through this JCPA, and that would also leave a backdoor open for more foreign actors to come in, China, Russia, to get paid by our taxpayer dollars, subsidized by our taxpayer dollars through all this sort of media cartel and collusion between government, big tech, and media. Now, the good thing is, this didn't get passed. It was close. Think about the name, Journalism, Competition and Preservation Act. If something needs to be preserved, it kind of means it's running out, it's dying, it's expiring, it's facing extinction. This is what the media is facing. Why else would they be giving it this name? Now, I like this description in Reason, a libertarian blog website here. The worst ideas in Congress never die. They just get sneaked into unrelated bills. Yes, this is an unrelated bill. Why aren't people talking about this? Maybe just because it just seems so confusing. Journalism, Competition and Preservation Act, like treating media staff or legacy media as endangered species. Yeah, maybe they should call it that, the Endangered Species Media Act. You got to wonder about this language. Here it says, to provide a temporary safe harbor for publishers of online content to collectively negotiate with dominant online platforms regarding the terms on which content may be distributed. I mean, this is just legalese. It's really, really annoying, that kind of language. You need to think in legalese to understand that. But anyway, it's been scrapped. Look, there we go. It has been crossed out. Facebook actually came out. Meta, Mark Zuckerberg came out and threatened to pull all the news off the Facebook platform if this went through. So I guess they've been hit so hard facing extinction, they didn't feel that they were going to be protected. So there's a lot of infighting going on between the big tech, the big media, and the government. So the big government, using our taxpayer dollars, was trying to bail out the media and expecting big tech to come along. And Mark Zuckerberg says, we're not coming along. And that, I think, was a big reason why it failed. There's other big reasons too. Now, it wasn't just Mark Zuckerberg and Meta that got up in arms about this JCPA. There was a lot of people that did. And this is great. You look at this. This is a letter that was sent to the House of Representatives, signed by a bunch of organizations, really from a wide range of people. This is Creative Commons, Fight for the Future Internet Archive, Patreon, even Wikimedia. There is really a lot of people got up in arms about this. And this really shows where people power, community organizations, non-profit organizations, non-governmental organizations really can make a difference. The weirdest thing about the JCPA is that it was pushed into the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act. Why is the Pentagon involving in media? Why is our defense spending going to that instead of actually going to the military, which is pretty struggling right now? So this Journalism Conservation and Preservation Act is kind of like trying to see the media as an endangered species. And when you look at all the layoffs going on, yeah, the legacy left-leaning media is in danger because people aren't watching it anymore. The trust in media is not there. Even the Democrats who normally support that left-leaning media, because it's not traditional media, it is the left-leaning media, they're not even being supported by their base. And so many other people have already left and are no longer viewers or readers of those media. We are seeing massive cracks there, so much so that the government is trying to bail them out through the Pentagon using strange language, calling them an endangered species. I mean, it makes sense in a way, but if you just read it, it doesn't make sense. And why is it in the NDAA anyway? It seems weird, but I think it's deceptive, very deceptive. So we have to pay attention to these things. And the good thing is that people are paying attention. The JCPA didn't go ahead, but pay attention because it may try to be pushed into some other unrelated bill. So we have to pay attention. The good thing is that people are paying attention. They're paying attention and they're making things happen. You are doing that. If you are out there and you are part of an organization, stay active. Keep active, keep pushing at it, get more involved in your community, get more involved in local organizations, in non-governmental organizations, whether it's in a county level, a state level, or a city level, it doesn't matter. Stay involved. You have a civic duty and you can actually do something. Pay attention to the fine print. Pay attention to what's going into bills in your area. Even the federal government, they all come down and they affect you at a local level. So pay attention to what's going on a local level. The media and government collusion has been proven in so many ways now, but the cracks are there and they're getting bigger and bigger. Now's the time to not only pay attention, but actually do something about it. You don't have to take my advice on it. I would love to hear what you think about all this information. Send me an email via my website. Go to kayrubacek.com. That's Kayrubacek. You have been watching the Today with Kay show. Please click the like, subscribe, share, and all of those buttons wherever platform you are listening or watching on. I really appreciate you being here with me. I would love to hear your feedback on the show and any ideas you have for me. So go to my website and contact me there, and I will see you again soon.